Before I set my GCSEs, I was consistently getting 6s and 7s during my exams and practice essays. And I think this was simply because I had a creative mind. As someone who actually never read growing up, when I set my GCSEs, I got a 9. And there are a few things I did which helped me to get there. And there are tools now which I think if I had back then would have made getting a 9 even easier. I'm going to share that with you today. My name's Sunny. I'm a third year medical student at Kent and Medway Medical School. Looking back at my GCSEs, they were quite difficult actually. And I don't think an exam went faster ever than my English literature exam. The cramps I got during that exam were crazy. I was writing for the full 2 hours and 15 minutes, however long it was. Looking back at English literature, it really frustrated me. This was not a subject I looked forward to going to class for because I quickly identified a few issues with English literature that made it so difficult. Number one was the idea generation aspect of it. It doesn't matter how many times you've read a book. If you can't remember the quotes, the extracts, the themes of the book, then you're not going to get anywhere. Number two was the analytical side of it. Say two people can remember the same quote. Whoever's got the better analysis is going to score more marks. So it doesn't even matter if you remember the quote, because if you don't know how to analyze it to a degree which is 7, 8 or 9 level, then you might as well not even write it, right? So the analysis of the quote is really important, and that in itself is a hurdle, because how do you just suddenly think of better ways to analyze the same quote? That's an issue that I saw. And then thirdly, the most annoying and painful barrier to scoring well in English literature was the sheer volume. Tell me how a 16-year-old, I don't even know if I was 16 when I was sitting my GCSEs, tell me how a 16-year-old is going to remember 2 books, 16 poems, and how to compare the plethora of themes within each of those poems, as well as analyze each of those books to the degree which it actually annoys me thinking back at it. You don't understand, guys. I had resentment towards English literature because as someone who didn't read, compared to everyone else who obviously read books, you can just tell that their analytical skills were so much better than yours. The things they'd come up with, you'd be like, damn, how do you even think of that? And I'm going to show you how. And I think there are ways which I can now think of which will counteract each of these 3 sticking points, which if you implement, there's no reason why you can't improve your English literature grade. And this is coming from a science guy. So basically the way my mind works is figure out how stuff works, break it down, work on the individual parts, and then when you put it back together, it must work. I did part of this when I was sitting my GCSEs and it worked. And so I've kind of refined the process, add a little bit to it, and then so when it comes to the problem of idea generation and the problem of being able to analyze something to a great extent, or to an extent which it can score you high marks like an 8 or a 9, I found 3 solutions. Number 1, the easiest. Talk to your friends. So in my class, there were 3 people, 2 boys, 1 girl, who I particularly looked up to when it came to English literature. They all read all the time. Whenever we would do creative writing in class, whatever they wrote was always magical. They were really good at writing. And you know what I did a few weeks coming up to my exam? I asked them all individually, what quote would you give for X theme in X book, and how would you analyze it? Simple. Where I couldn't come up with the ideas, I borrowed other people's ideas, and I'm coining this magpieing. They gave me the quotes, which were their go-to quotes, because I'm asking them off the top of their heads. And they gave me their go-to quotes and they gave me their go-to analysis for this, and that was stored in my head. Now, I had fragments of level 9 writing from level 9 writers in me, and lo and behold, that makes you a level 9 writer as well. So if you have friends who, they don't even have to be your friends, let's be honest, just ask people in your class, because trust me, they're going to be willing to help you, because why would they not be? So magpie off them, ask them for quotes. Steal from people who are higher than you, because they're just going to drag you up. Number 2, if you're too shy to ask your friends, go to YouTube. There were a few times I found myself at night, level 9 analysis for Ozymandias' poem, level 9 analysis for A Christmas Carol, level 9 analysis for Inspector Calls. And you know what? They were all great videos. The only issue with this is that you get so much volume all at once that you need to make sure that you're making notes on this, or it won't actually stay in your head. But again, that's a great way to source high analysis and then put it in your own work. The last thing that you can do to fix this idea generation and analysis is to use ChatGPT. See, ChatGPT wasn't around when I was sitting my exams in 2019, but it is now, and you guys should fully take use of it. I've actually got a video on how to use ChatGPT to score highly in my medical school exams, where I actually managed to get in the top 10% in my class. So you guys should definitely check that out if you're interested in mastering how to use ChatGPT, because I go in depth on exactly what to ask it. But for now, I'll give you a brief of, you can use ChatGPT to ask it, give me very creative analysis on this quote. Or you can ask it, give me quotes which fit the theme of power in Ozymandias, and see which ones it pulls out. And then of the ones it pulls out which you like and which you think that you'll be able to remember easily, ask it, compare two poems. You can say, compare the poems Ozymandias in the 600 for themes of power, and do this systematically with bullet points and analysis underneath. And then ChatGPT will give you all of this writing. And like I said before, just reading this information isn't going to be good enough. You need to produce something from it. You need to actively use the information that you see in front of you for it to be yours. We've solved idea generation and we've solved analysis. The last one is volume. And like I said before, this really annoyed me. Obviously, if you're watching this video, you want a 9 in English literature. But why stop at English literature when you can get a 9 in any other subject? I've made a video where you can increase all of your GCSE grades. Watch that. And if you're here and you're studying A-level English literature, then that video actually applies to you too. There's an app which helps you handle high volumes of information that I use every day in medical school for science, but I think is equally useful for essay subjects because I used it during my A-level psychology course and I got an A* in that thanks to this app. This app is called Anki. And the way Anki works is that it's a flashcard app where you can make cards. An example card you could make is quotes from Ozymandias that display power. And then you write your 3 quotes in the answer box. And you can do this for all of the themes in Ozymandias. And you can also do cards which are like, analyze this quote. And then you can write the perfect analysis of a quote as a paragraph in the answer box. And then that can be one flashcard. Sorry I keep mentioning Ozymandias, that's the only one I can remember through Power and Conflict. So now you've got all your flashcards. The beauty of Anki is that once you start doing your flashcards, the ones you get right, Anki shows you less of. And the ones you get wrong, Anki shows you more of. That means if you're really good at Inspector Calls, but you've got your Inspector Calls in Anki, after you do your quotes from Inspector Calls and you keep getting them all right, it will show you the quotes later and later. So then you can focus more time on the things which you're not good at. For example, the poems. And the reason Anki is so good is because it uses this spaced repetition technology and it battles the forgetting curve. So every time you get it right, or every time which you review information again, the amount of time it takes for you to forget said information becomes longer. And so you can literally hold more information in your head at once, but by studying it less. And the way it does this is it makes you study the information right before you're about to forget it. And if you forget it, it brings it back to the beginning of the queue where you'll see it more frequently. So yes, definitely use Anki, look up Anki, do your research on Anki. I actually need to make an Anki video so I can just plug it, because the amount of times I suggest Anki to people is astronomical. But honestly, the best app out there for remembering high volume things. The last method that I would tackle volume with is using mind maps. Now, I actually have made a mind map video, so you guys can check that out and see exactly how to make a good mind map and why they're so useful. Let me give you a brief summary. Why I think mind maps are so good is because it doesn't just use memory. It doesn't just use your blind memory, which is when you just remember words. It also uses a visual memory. It pairs a picture with blind memory. And if you know how memory works, well, I don't know if anyone knows how memory works, but why this is good is because you're using 2 techniques instead of 1 to remember a single piece of information. For example, I really struggled with pathology in medical school, but as soon as I started making mind maps of specific pathologies, pathology became my strongest thing, because I wasn't just using rote learning essentially for pathology. I was making pictures, diagrams, mind maps, and then I was putting these mind maps into Anki, covering up each box, and then remind myself. Now, whenever I think of heart attacks or angina, I see the mind map. I see where that piece of information is on the mind map. That's your visual spatial memory coming into play there. And that's so powerful because that just saves you time. Now, whenever you think of Ozymandias, you see your mind map on Ozymandias. Or when you think of Inspector Calls, you see your mind map of where you've put the quotes on Inspector Calls for power, where you've put it for deceit, where you've put the quotes for love. So, quick summary, guys. For you to do well in your English literature, what you need to do is, you need to steal ideas from your friends. You need to go on YouTube and find powerful analysis and good quotes from people making level 9 videos. And lastly, you need to use ChatGPT to analyze quotes which you like or that you can't find very good analysis of, and also to generate you quotes for each themes. Once you've got all this information, you need to put it to use. There's two ways you can put it to use. Put it to use through Anki and put it to use through mind maps. Keep doing your mind maps and you keep doing your Anki. By the time you write another essay, the levels are going to be crazy. Go collect your 9 in English literature, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.